So let's start out by creating a brand new ASP.NET MVC application. So from within Visual Studio, go to New Project. And inside of the New Project dialog, we're actually going to go under Visual C# and choose Web. And then we're going to choose the ASP.NET Web Application template. I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. And we'll just call it WSAD for Web Server Application Development -app1. We'll want to create a directory for a solution, and we'll go ahead and add it to source control as well, and hit OK. Now, ASP.NET will come up and it'll say, okay, what kind of template exactly do you want to build? So for us, we're going to stick with the ASP.NET 4.6 templates. If you're using an older version of Visual Studio, you won't see the ASP.NET 4.6 versus ASP.NET 5 options. You'll just see ASP.NET templates. But generally speaking, this step should be pretty consistent between Visual Studio 2013 and Visual Studio 2015. From here, we'll choose MVC. The box will get checked for the MVC core references. On the right-hand side, we'll have different authentication modes as well as Azure hosting. I'm going to uncheck the host in the cloud. This may be checked for you or it may not be. I'm unchecking it for myself because I do not need it hosted on Microsoft Azure. Over here under authentication, you'll see that individual user accounts is our authentication mode. I'm going to click change authentication. We're actually going to roll our own authentication mode, so we're going to choose no authentication. And we'll hit OK. So your authentication should say no authentication. ASP.NET MVC template is what we're using. No Azure cloud hosting. And that will be all we need. So we'll click OK there. And Visual Studio will go through and actually scaffold for us our ASP.NET MVC project. Takes a little bit because it's creating a lot of different files and going out and downloading a lot of dependencies. This is our source control prompt, so I'm going to choose Git as my source control, and I'll hit OK. And Visual Studio will set up our source control, download all of our needed packages, and get us on our way. Okay, so this is kind of a README, a welcome of sorts. So there's a lot of actually good links in here that have different tutorials that talk about different technologies within ASP.NET. If you have the time, I'd highly recommend going through and kind of just watching some of these. Some of them are going to be higher in level than what we're going to be covering in the course, so they may be completely over your head. But there's certain pieces in here that would definitely be worth watching. The getting started with ASP.NET MVC, as of course, would be a good one. Changing your site theme, so if you want to customize the theme and the look of your site, you can use that. Learning a bit about NuGet, we'll be covering that in the class, but it's always good to kind of know about it. Configuring authentication, you can watch that as well. Now, the customized information about a user's website is also good. The social profiles we're not going to cover, but that might be a neat reference to have. We will be talking about ASP.NET Web APIs later in the course. The securing one is also a good one to watch. SignalR is an interesting one where you can actually learn about how to do two-way communication in real time with your app and your server. And then the rest of these are just kind of additional pieces. The theming link here for Bootstrap, that might be fun just if you're interested. We'll talk more about it as we continue in the weeks, but to really get a good sense of what Bootstrap is, that's a great one to look at. Okay, so that's the README. You can always go back and look at it later. So under the Solution Explorer, you'll see here that we have basically our default, quote-unquote, template for an ASP.NET project. So we will discuss each one of these files in greater detail later. But the one piece, the README that we were just looking at, is this project_README. So if you need to go back, this is the source code for that page. If you need to go back, you can obviously go back and get that information. As well, just to point or to mention this, under Team Explorer, you'll see here, we don't need that. Under our local Git repositories, a Git repo was created for this project as part of us checking that box. So if we double click on that repo, that'll bring us into our Git management tools, so we can go in and actually sync our changes and commit changes. So if you go under changes right now with this brand new project, you'll see all the files in this solution are all new to be included. So my recommendation would be is with a fresh project, go ahead and say new project commit. And this will take all of the basic raw files before any modifications have been made, and we'll commit that to our repository. So we start with a good baseline, so if we need to roll back or take any changes back, we can do that. All right, so that is the creation of a new ASP.NET MVC project.